everybody.
Good evening and happy May or March. We'll call this meeting of the Johnson City Board of Commissioners for Thursday, March 1st to order. If you'll rise for the invocation by Dr. Barry Burns, pastor of Cornerstone Church of Johnson City, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Shall we pray? Father, we thank you tonight. We humbly acknowledge, Father, that you are our help and our strength. And Father, we acknowledge that your blessings flow to us through the power of your grace. So now, Father, we thank you for your continued hand of favor upon this great city. Thank you, Father, tonight as we pray for our mayor, all the commissioners, for our city manager, for his staff, for all those who are involved. We ask, Father, that you would impart to them your wisdom from on high as they make decisions that affect so many thousands of people in our community. And Father, we ask to give them boldness as they forcefully lead us forward into an ever brighter future. Tonight, Father, we especially pray for our fire chief and our police chief and all the able men and women who serve under them. Father, send forth your angels from heaven to mount guard round about them or protect them from harm and injury. Father, most of all tonight, we ask that our community would be a united community, that we would be bound together in the bond of love and the peace of God. And for that, we give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, we would like to ask that the commission add an item to the agenda, and that would be consideration of a beer license for S&S of Johnson City LLC, doing business as Surf and Brew Oyster Bar. This is an existing business, it's had a name change, and it is ready for your consideration.
Very good.
Move it be added to the agenda.
We have a motion. How about a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of the minutes from your meeting held Thursday, February the 15th.
Good. Anybody have any additions or edits to the minutes?
Move for approval.
Have a motion. Have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Next order of business will be presentation of a proclamation recognizing firefighter Kevin Colbaugh as the 2017 Firefighter of the Year for the state of Tennessee. If we could ask the chiefs and Kevin to come forward, please.
Good evening. We are so proud of you, as we are all of our first responders, but you've, Kevin, you've had the distinction of being named the Firefighter of the Year by the VFW, and that's not a local honor, that is a statewide honor, so we're very proud of you, and we want to celebrate that with the following proclamation. Whereas Kevin Colbaugh began his career in public service in 1990, and whereas the Veterans Administration in Johnson City called on him to begin a telemedicine program in 2007, which led him to the Johnson City Fire Department in 2013. And whereas Colbaugh is very active in the Johnson City Fire Department, participating in many departmental activities, including various special projects, task force, and the Medical Quality Assurance Program, where he continues to leverage his education and experience as a firefighter and paramedic. And whereas throughout his career, he has received several awards of distinction, most recently named the 2017 Firefighter of the Year for the state of Tennessee by the Tennessee Veterans of Foreign Wars. Whereas, or now, therefore, I, David Temita, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, officially congratulate Kevin Colbaugh on receiving this award of distinction where he successfully and admirably represented our area on the state stage. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's an honor and a privilege to have this bestowed upon me. I'm thankful for my lieutenant that recommended me for that, and the VFW went above and beyond. When I think about them, our veterans, I mean, really, their duty, their honor for this country, it's what gave us the right, the liberties, and the freedom we have to make the choices we have. I mean, it gave me the freedom to become what I wanted to be, which was a firefighter, to live out my passions. So I'm very thankful for that privilege, and it's something I don't take lightly, don't take for granted. And there's many other men and women firefighters just as deserving of this as I am, so I accept that on behalf of all of us. So I'm thankful for that, thankful for our city leadership, and appreciate you very much.
Your next proclamation is recognizing Opioid Awareness Month.
Good evening again, nice to see you. Well, Becky, this is the second time I've seen you today on the same topic, so that explains why we're here. So whereas overdose deaths have surpassed automobile crashes as the leading cause of accidental deaths in the U.S., and whereas the Tennessee Department of Health reported 1,631 deaths from drug overdoses in 2016, the highest annual number of such deaths recorded in state history. And whereas the neonatal abstinence syndrome, NAS, rate in Northeast Tennessee is 8.5 times the national average, with some local counties experience rates as high as 1 in 10 NAS births. And whereas 80% of crimes committed in Tennessee have some drug-related nexus, and whereas the faith community in our region can provide valuable support to those fighting addiction by welcoming and extending compassion, and whereas Holy Friendship Summit seeks to bring together local clergy, clinicians, educators, and leaders to produce networks and share resources regarding opioid addiction and identify barriers to recovery and create greater community support for the prevention, treatment, and recovery from opioid addiction. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, David Tomita, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the month of March as Opioid Awareness Month in Johnson City, Tennessee, where we are dedicated to improving the quality of life for all by promoting recovery for those struggling with addiction and by providing new avenues of support for their families and friends. And there you are. And if you'd like to tell us who you are and
Okay.
say a few words.
Thank you. I'm Lottie Ryans, and I was going to tell you a little bit about the summit. It's May 18th and 19th, and there's been a regional steering committee, literally from Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee, that's putting the summit together in partnership with Duke Divinity. If you think about the churches in our region, we have a grand opportunity to marshal a whole army of people to help people in need. People come to church for respite, they come to church for love, and we want people to be able to reach out within their church community to understand what services can be provided to them or their family. So with this summit, we're hoping to bring together churches, clinicians, people involved in caregiving, people involved in mental health services, to learn about addiction, to learn what causes addiction, what services are available in our region, what they can do as a church community to help people in their church and in their community. We do have world-renowned speakers who will be a part of that, so there will be plenary sessions, there will be breakout sessions, but even more important, there will be a year-long project where best practices will be gathered and shared, and we'll also have a book that will come out a year later that will give a practical guide for churches in terms of things they can do to help people in crisis.
I'm Becky Haas with the Johnson City Police Department. I do community crime prevention programs, and I've been a part of this steering team for about a year now. And we want to thank the commissioners and the mayor. This is the 5th city government or city county government in 2 weeks that's issued the same proclamation. Of course, we saved the best for last. But we've had Bristol, Kingsport, Sullivan County, and Washington County make the same designation. And the reason we did that before this Sunday is this Sunday we're issuing a call to action to our local houses of worship to March 4th against addiction, because it is March 4th. And so we are hopeful people will be from their pulpits sharing about the Holy Friendship Summit and signing up congregants. And the only thing to add to Lottie's comments is that this is going to be a practical event. In the fact, our goal as a steering committee is that we would move people from inspiration to perspiration, and during the weekend of the summit that people would catch a glimpse of how they can get involved in a practical way, removing the barriers to recovery.
Hi, I just want to second that, or third that, I suppose. I'm Andy Clements. I'm a faculty member at ETSU, and I just want to emphasize what all groups have come together. We have educators, we have clergy, we have business leaders, we have theologians, we're flying people in from Scotland that write amazing books that changed my life, and I'm going to be there teaching some, but really as a fan of some of these people who have inspired me, and we hope to inspire people in the region. It's very inexpensive, it's very accessible, and the material will be accessible. It won't be lofty, lots of big words, but much more let's get together and try to help people in our region, because we have this army in our pews that want to help, and we want to help people to know how to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the presentation of a Hidden Heroes resolution in support of Johnson City's military and veterans caregivers.
Thank you, and Mayor, thank you so much for letting me present this resolution. Before I come down and ask our board members to come up, I would just like to say just a couple of words about what we're doing here. I know we all get calls from citizens, and I did last summer from a lady in the front row here, Maxine Philippi, who wanted to talk about Hidden Heroes. And that call for me really became a calling as we learned about the 5.5 million people in our country who are caregivers. And I know that many of us sitting right up here tonight have had that role as well. We have probably close to 700 in our own community who are caregivers for military veterans. And so that's what we want to talk about tonight, and how we are becoming a Hidden Hero City. Hidden Heroes is a program from the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and I would like to share with y'all that we think Senator Elizabeth Dole and hopefully Senator Bob Dole is watching by way of our live streaming tonight. So Mayor, I know you always refer to who may be watching.
Takes us up to 12.
But very pleased to know that Senator Dole, and if you're there, we want to welcome you to our meeting, and so thrilled that you are watching us tonight. We got started on what we could do as a city, and a part of the Hidden Heroes program is to solicit cities to become what are called Hidden Hero cities, and there are over 100 of them across the nation. And we'll tonight become the 4th in the state of Tennessee. We formed a board, many of the board members are here tonight, and a working committee made up of a lot of wonderful staff who here with the city have helped us get organized. And what we really found more than anything in really throwing the net out to see what services are available for caregivers was a tremendous amount of love and compassion in our community. And so in becoming a Hidden Hero City, it really is the city being an advocate as a resource so that these caregivers, when they need help, know where to get directed. So I am just thrilled. I've made so many new friends through this process and feel like that this is for our own city. It shows, again, our love and compassion and neighbors helping neighbors. So I'm going to come down. I think we've got about a 30-second video. And by the way, Senator Dole has several ambassadors for Hidden Heroes. You're going to see one of them right now. And so, Senator Dole, we're hoping to get you here to our city sometime this year. And the person that we see on the video, he can come too. So we want to show that.
If you are a military caregiver, there's no uniform, there's no camouflage jacket or battle ribbon, not even a cape, but you do serve our country every day. Like Jessica, you are a wife, or maybe you're a mother or a father or a friend, a family member, a loved one who is taking care of our wounded military veterans. You rarely ask for help, but you deserve our support. So please, join me, Senator Elizabeth Dole, and other Americans who care. Go to hiddenheroes.org.
We ask the board members to come up, please. Well, thank you all. This is a wonderful working group of people who have come together, and we've learned a lot about each other, and we've learned a lot about our communities. And so it gives me great honor to read our resolution and present it as a motion to the commission tonight. Whereas the series of wars and conflicts in which our nation has been engaged over time since World War II has resulted in 5.5 million military and veteran caregivers who are parents, spouses, siblings, and friends caring for those wounded, ill, or injured who have served our nation, as documented by the 2014 RAND study commissioned by Elizabeth Doyle Foundation. And whereas the daily task of these military and veteran caregivers can include bathing, feeding, dressing, and caring for the grievous injuries of wounded warriors, administering medications, providing emotional support, caring for the family and the home, and working outside the home to earn essential income. And whereas the nation provides multifaceted support to our wounded, ill, and injured veterans and service members through the public, private, and philanthropic resources, but their caregivers receive little support or acknowledgement. And whereas most military and veteran caregivers consider the challenging work they do as simply carrying out their civic and patriotic duty, without realizing they are in fact caregivers and do not identify themselves as such. And whereas an alarming number of military and veteran caregivers, according to research, are suffering numerous debilitating mental, physical, emotional effects as a result of their caregiving duties. And whereas the City of Johnson City desires to recognize and support those who are serving in these vital roles in our community. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the City of Johnson City that the City of Johnson City become a Hidden Heroes community in support of military and veteran caregivers, that the City of Johnson City seek to identify military and veteran caregivers residing in our community, that the City of Johnson City work to ensure that our government organizations, employers, and nonprofits are aware of the unique challenges of military and veteran caregivers and are encouraged to create supportive environments and opportunities for assistance. That the City of Johnson City plan an observance each May during Military Appreciation Month and the month of Military Caregiver to honor and recognize the community's military and veteran caregivers in partnership with the Elizabeth Doyle Foundation National Hidden Heroes Campaign. That the City of Johnson City encourage all who are care for and support veterans and service members to extend that support to their caregiver. That the City of Johnson City designate a point of contact for our community from the public or private sector for citizens and organizations wanting to offer support and caregivers who need that. And so, Mayor, I enter that as a motion to the commission to approve the resolution as read.
Very good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
And only one or two are going to speak, but I would like to have the board introduce themselves and kind of give a, we have, by the way, I just saw Congressman Rowe on Tuesday in his office in Washington. He knows what we're doing tonight, and he's very, very pleased that we've become a Hidden Hero City, as well as Rusty Crowe, who's been on board with this from the beginning. So we'll start down here with you, Bill.
I'm Bill Darden from Congressman Phil Rowe's office.
I'm Phil Carragher, and I'm very honored to have been asked to serve on this board. I'm a veteran, and you don't leave your buddies behind. And this organization assures us veterans that we're not left behind. Thank you.
My name's Karen Carragher. Maxine Philippi, excuse me. Tonight I'd like to say a great big thank you from Senator Elizabeth Dole to Vice Mayor Jenny Brock to City Commissioner Pete, got you wrong, City. Got you wrong. City Manager. Both of them came forward first and said, yes, we're on board. I want to thank each and every one of you that have helped in making this possible tonight, and especially to our young Amanda, who is a fellow on Senator Dole's team, so she's going to speak next. So thank you much.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm so proud that Johnson City is the first East Tennessee city to join this movement, and I know Senator Dole shares that sentiment as well. My name is Amanda Arwood. I am the Tennessee Dole Caregiver Fellow for the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, and I've been a caregiver since 2012 when my husband was injured. And so knowing how much support we have from our community here is just incredible, and I hope that other cities take this and they roll with it.
My name is Brian Lozon. I'm the commander of the American Legion here in Johnson City, and we're just proud to be part of this effort. And we're just really hoping that these particular heroes will be hidden no longer. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Whitaker with the First Tennessee Area Agency on Aging and Disability, and our agency is very supportive of this initiative because we know that caregivers do provide the majority of care, and so anything our agency can do to support this initiative, we're here.
And I'm Deb Fogel from Senior Center, and I'm Senior Services Manager.
I'm Sam Watson. I'm the Content Director, the editor at Johnson City Press, and I have 2 active duty nephews and an active duty brother-in-law. And so this hits very close to home to me, and I certainly hope that the public will get behind this effort.
Becky Buchanan, Hidden Heroes Board member, former community relations for the city of Johnson City, now retired, but I am thrilled to work with all these great folks. And Maxine, thank you for bringing this to our attention. It was Maxine Philippi that really pushed this and brought it to us. And of course, Vice Mayor Brock led the charge.
I'm Angela Hare from ETSU Army ROTC.
And I'm Marcia Blevins. I'm the Caregiver Support Coordinator at the VA.
Just kind of wind up. On the city website, there's the Hidden Heroes icon. And so for anyone who is more interested in information, they can click on that. It will take them to hiddenheroes.org, which is the national website, and it will also take them to the local. And Amanda and her Volunteers America are the intake point for this program. So our big desire is to get you to register, and you can find out what the resources are. So thank y'all, board members. We really appreciate you coming tonight. Shows great support, and we're ready to roll. Thank you. Y'all come back real quick.
Oh, we want to.
Sorry about that. We have to squeeze in a little bit. Can we get y'all together?
Good job, Bill. I usually just let the commission do it. It's kind of like saying, I understand. All right, Commissioners, your next order of business is consideration of a certificate of compliance for One Stop Discount Wines and Liquors doing business as One Stop Wines and Spirits. The appropriate reviews have been made. The recommendation is for approval, and as a reminder, this is really just a certificate of compliance, and the state actually issues the license.
And sometime back, we instructed the applicants they no longer needed to be present, so that would explain their.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Mr. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
Your next order of business will be consideration of a beer license for S&S of Johnson City, doing business as Surf and Brew Oyster Bar. This business is requesting a Class 1 on-premise license for their business at 612 Lyle Street, Suite 101. The appropriate reviews have been made, and the recommendation is for approval.
They already have this license under another name. Is it?
They do have a license under another name. Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Is the applicant here? Okay, come on up. And since you're here, we'll go through the formalities. State your, I know your menu already.
Mike Weimers.
And your address, please.
Okay, 612 Lyle Street.
Have you read the rules and regulations regarding the sale of beer in the city of Johnson City?
Yes, sir, we have.
Do you agree to abide by those rules?
Absolutely.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, sir.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. If you'd like to tell us about your business.
Well, thank
A little
you.
free advertising.
Hey, free, I love free advertising. So we'll have a little bit of an expanded menu from what we had out there before. So hand-cut ribeye steaks and some that we'll be adding to the menu. We also have some I guess we'll call it really fresh fish, because what we'll be getting in 5 days a week over there is the fish that was caught yesterday that was coming off the boat docks today, cleaned this afternoon. We'll be serving that tomorrow, so we'll have a lot of fresh catch out there as well. And plus all of our good seafood and a few other improvements that we'll have from there as well. So come see us.
Very good. We will. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Have a great night.
He has menus.
He has menus, yes.
Oh.
Thank you,
Better
sir.
than a menu, it would have been a sample platter, right?
Thank you.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll have some invitations. We're gonna do a little reception here in a week or so. So we'll do this one.
Very good. Thank you. Good luck.
Just one note. Sure. I just wanted to pass along. I tell you, your building department, fire department, and the ladies downstairs, top notch. I just, they've done a great job.
They hear that so often. They get tired of hearing
Yes, we
it.
do.
Somebody, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna have an opportunity to do that. So I want to thank you for all your folks.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thanks, Dave.
Your next order of business is to make 2 appointments to the Golf Advisory Board. The terms of Kevin Vanoy and Chris McIntosh are expiring, and there are 6 applicants for the 2 positions, 2 of them being the current members of the board whose terms are expiring.
Very good. Do we have a nomination or nominations?
Mayor, I'd just like to make a comment here. I don't know how you want to handle the vote, but Mr. Vanoy, I think, is an important person to maintain on this board. He is in his first term, so there's no term limit issue there. Mr. McIntosh, I think, has been effective and useful on this board as well. However, he is finishing his second term, and we have the opportunity to add somebody I think could be very useful to us as we move forward, particularly as we're going from 2 golf courses down to 1, and we hope to see that golf course become immensely more effective. And the reason that I would support Landon Owen for that is that he does have a great deal of marketing experience that I think would be tremendously useful to us if we really want to grow our rounds played at Pine Oaks. So my 2 that I'll support this evening will be Owen and Vanoy.
Are there any other nominations? Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
I very much would. I would recommend that this commission approve Landon Owen and Kevin Vanoy for terms on the Golf and Advisory Board.
Very good. Have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes.
We'd like to just make a comment. Mr. Chris McIntosh has been a wonderful board member, has, from a communication standpoint, and he's done a lot. And I just want to say thank to Chris for all he has done. Hope he will still be there. He's quite a good golfer, and I think he's gotten a hole-in-one once out there. So.
It's also, this is one of those situations where we have a whole bunch of applicants, any of whom would be very worthwhile appointments. And so if you're not appointed this go-around, don't let that discourage you from putting your name in the hat next go-around, because there will come a time.
Your next appointment will be to make one appointment to the Parks and Recreation Advisory.
Very good. Do we have any nominations or a nomination?
Well, let me just make a comment or two here, I guess, as well. I know that John Dixon is with us this evening. He and I have talked about his interest, and I certainly would like to see him at some point be a member of this advisory board. This evening, I'm not going to support his nomination, but what I would suggest is we have a couple of people who really strong interest on the Parks and Rec Board right now is soccer and growing play of soccer and growing facilities for the play of soccer. And as one of those couple members comes off, John, I'll certainly be very supportive of you being on this board. I've had the opportunity to work with Polly Peterson in a lot of different capacities, one of which was previously being on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Very effective in anything and everything that she does, and she is very effective as a Parks and Rec Advisory Board member. I am going to support her this evening, although I have to tell you, it is very close from my standpoint whether I would support her or whether I would support John. The only thing that I can say is when you have an advisory board, you need a breadth of knowledge that takes in each different sport that's in play in the community, or each different aspect of recreation that's in play in the community. And I think we have very strong commitment to soccer on the part of two of our members right now.
Is that a motion? How are we going to do it?
Well, are there any other
No,
nominations?
I think John certainly should be given the opportunity for each of them.
Well,
They're
I
gonna
will
support
speak for
tonight.
John, because he has been active coming to our meetings when we're meeting with the Parks and Rec. He's here tonight, and he has been very active in the sports community here, so I think he'd be a great addition.
I'm going to support Commissioner Van Brocklin's position, because it's not just about athletics on the Parks and Rec Board. I mean, we have, from the, our naturalist programs, our conservation programs, those other kinds of parks that we have. And so, and I'll be honest with you, I feel like we need more diversity on the park board, so I'm going to support Ms. Peterson as well.
Very good. Anybody else care to speak? If not,
I would just echo what Commissioner Van Brocklin said. I think when we've met a number of times with the Parks and Rec Board over the last 3 to 4 months, and it is really important to have a wide-ranging set of perspectives. Having said that, I'm very torn on this appointment because there's only one name in the consideration who's made the effort to reach out and contact the people who make the appointment. And so I'm going to go with the person who put forth the extra effort, but I do that with some exhortation to him that you're not just there for soccer, you're there for all of Parks and Rec and its programs, and as an advisory board, that is critical that it always be weighed in that regard. So I share Commissioner Van Brocklin's concern about the perspective of who's there, but at the same time, when you're in the consideration for these positions, it's very helpful to contact us so that we know who you are and why you want to serve. And when I have to pick between those two, that's how I end up.
Can I make one more comment? That Ms. Peterson has served before on the Parks Board, and I don't think Mr. Dixon has, and I just like his effort to do this, so.
well, there we have it.
You're it, tag.
I did that on purpose, just to mess with you.
Thank you so much. God, I hate that. No, that's fine. I'm struggling as well, for the same reasons that have been already verbalized. But to be consistent with my comments every time we do this, you've been the only one I've talked to about it. And I'm familiar with the other folks that have applied, and they're all great. I mean, we're not going to go wrong however we go. And again, encourage some continued application as those, I think there's a couple of seats coming up here shortly, although I don't know where we are term-wise. But just, we appreciate the interest. I mean, it's a hugely engaged, important department now, especially with what we're considering. But I will give the same directive that I gave 2 times before. It cannot be solely about soccer. It cannot be. There's so much more that needs to be done. And please remember that. Although I haven't really decided who I'm going to vote for yet. I'll surprise you. Well, how about a roll call?
Commissioner Fowler,
John Dixon.
Commissioner Van Brocklin,
Holly Peterson.
Commissioner Wise,
Mr. Dixon.
Vice Mayor Brock,
Ms. Peterson.
and Mayor Temita.
Dixon. And, I mean, again, thank you to all who applied. Thank you to all who applied. But
And it's worth noting, one of the folks that applied was appointed, I think, last month to the Sesquicentennial Commission, and I think we'll plug in that regard. And again, apply again, please.
And mix it up. Sometimes when, again, perspective and fresh eyes on things is important. And with our sesquicentennial committee, there are going to be numerous subcommittees and task force that branch out of that, and that's a good way to get your foot in the door. But please, if you're really interested, holler at us, talk to us, call us, email us. So, thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Next order of business is to consider a street closure request from the ETSU Language and Culture Resource Center to accommodate the Corazon Latino Festival to be held on Friday, April the 6th. They're requesting a portion of Commerce Street to be closed between the hours of 3 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. on that date. We would recommend your approval.
Very good. Is the applicant here? Okay. Anybody have any questions if the applicant were here? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Have a motion, how about a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
Next business is consider a street closure request from the Overmountain chapter of Trout Unlimited for the Thirsty Orange Brew Extravaganza. That event will be on Saturday, April the 7th, and they are requesting the closure of a portion of Commerce Street from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. For the purposes of the festival. The applicant will be utilizing tents and other temporary structures, and they will be serving beer within the permitted area. The reviews have been made, and the recommendation is for approval.
Very good. Have we, is the applicant here? Well, we're at least consistent tonight. Are the
The beer
businesses?
has been approved at your
We
last
did
meeting.
it last meeting.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I mean, the surrounding businesses, are they okay? We got a couple of businesses on Commerce Street. Reagan, they all right? Okay. All right. Wild Wing, good? Okay, all right. Any questions for the non-existent applicant? Yeah. Any comments?
I'd like to approach the empty podium with a question.
About a motion?
Move for approval.
Okay, I'll take one of those as a motion, one as a
I'll
second.
second.
Okay. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin.
Yes.
Commissioner Wise.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Mayor Temita.
Yes.
Next business is consider a street closure request from the Williams Syndrome Association to accommodate their 5K road race. This will be held on Sunday, April the 22nd, and the request is to close a portion of various streets from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. for the purpose of the road race. There's a map in your packet that shows the streets that are being requested to be closed. This is an event that has occurred annually for several years now. We would recommend your approval.
Very good. Is our applicant here?
The applicant's father's here.
Very good. Come on up. Let's just, yeah,
Tell her this is really disappointing that she's not here with us this evening.
that's right.
But we're happy to see you.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant's father who is in attendance tonight? Is there something special we could do for them for showing up?
We could approve it. I would make a motion
Very
to
good.
approve
How about
it.
that?
I second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. Would you like to come to the podium and give us a plug?
Well, they can.
Okay?
I am actually the grandfather of a Williams child. If you talk to 100 people, you might find one that even understands what Williams syndrome is, but it's a genetic disorder. There's no real cause. In development, things just didn't gel like they were supposed to. But there's many health problems. What Williams Syndrome Association does, every penny that is raised in these walks goes to the Williams Syndrome Association, and it helps families. They have every other year they have a big convention, and there's classes for those Williams syndrome kids and their parents to better understand how to deal with your child. As there's many things to deal with, as I well understand as a grandfather. But it's a fantastic organization, and every other year they float their conventions like West Coast, Midwest, East Coast. This year it's on the East Coast, so that gives everyone an opportunity to at least be close to a convention about every 4 years at least. So thank you for approving that. We appreciate it.
Good luck with the
Good
ride.
luck. Thank you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Your next request is from Tri-Pride, Tennessee, to accommodate the Tri-Pride Parade to be held on Saturday, September the 15th. The street closure request is for Commerce. That portion of Commerce near North Rome will be closed from noon until the parade is over. That portion of the street of Commerce near Market and West Main will close at noon and reopen when the parade is over. Commerce from Lamont to West Main will close at 9 a.m. and reopen at 7 p.m. There is no structures or beer to be within the permitted area. The appropriate reviews having been made, the recommendation is for approval. And there's a map in the back of your packet.
Yep. Very good. Is the applicant here? Okay. Well, come on up. Let's have a party. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Applicants?
We're breaking the chain for you. Two of these.
That's good, yeah.
That's
All right.
So the start is at Rhone Street and the finish
By Founder's Park.
is about
Founder's
halfway,
Park,
about halfway
because-
down Founder's
Yeah,
Park.
because we're having the parade first, and then it continues with a festival that's in Founder's Park. So our plan is to complete the parade at the Commerce Street entrance to Founders, and then have that part of the Commerce stay closed, so we can put all the floats and everything on the back, those back streets over there.
Very
Move
good.
approval.
Motion, how about a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Temita?
Yes. Would you like to tell us about your event?
So the motivation for this event is that we would like to see the Tri-Cities become recognized as being an attractive and welcoming place to live, specifically for the LGBT community. And looking at our neighboring cities, Knoxville and Asheville, they've done a tremendous job of achieving this in the last few years. And in part, it's been because of large-scale public events that have been supported by local businesses and the government. So, you know, the overarching goal is to make the Tri-Cities become a welcoming place to live. And the specific strategy that we're going to be using is by having a free event, which is, we're a nonprofit organization, so this is just a free event for the community.
And it's a way of celebrating the diversity of the LGBT community and also creating a greater level of acceptance and inclusion in the larger Tri-Cities communities. Thank you all for approving us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
For the record, do you care to state your name so I can put that?
I'm Ken Lyon. I'm the president.
My name is George Shimon,
Okay, thank you.
Vice President.
And founder.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank you
luck.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your
kind of-
next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Could I interject one other thing here? I mean, we've approved 3 things along Commerce Street tonight, and I had someone, and I was through there the other night as well, and there's a lot of parking now that is at the Sevier Street end of Commerce Street that really is not parking areas. So when there's a lot of overflow and, really narrows the street down there. So I'm not saying for any further discussion tonight, but we may want to look into that to see how we manage traffic and parking on down there. I don't think you could get a fire truck through there sometimes. Just bring it up.
We're in the process of looking at that. Yes, ma'am. We certainly will.
All right, left to right, Commissioner Fowler, anything you want to pull for discussion on the consent agenda?
Nothing.
Vice Mayor Brock?
No.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
A6 and A7, please.
Commissioner Watt?
Everything's cleared for me, thank you.
Very good. A6, Mr. Peterson?
I note that one of these recommendations for condemnation has been pulled, and that was for track 1617A. We still have in front of us recommendations for condemnation of track 19 and track 28. If we could get a little bit of a history of what has gone on with these 2 tracks along Knob Creek Road, why it's felt that this is the only recourse that we have, and then if in fact we vote to what the process is that we go through from this point forward, how this gets addressed.
Starting almost a year ago, we started to receive our official appraisal. We declared fair market value on these tracks based on those appraisals last spring. With that approval of fair market value, you also gave us permission to proceed with condemnations if negotiations didn't work out. However, we're not just straight going forward with that without coming back to you and letting you have this chance to hear why we're doing it. Track 19, we'll take it first. That is this large red area right here. It's basically what's left of a family farm. There are brothers and sisters involved in owning the property now, and our appraisal is roughly $17,500. So that involves some slope easement payment, some construction easement, and taking of less than a half acre of property, mainly in this low area right in here. There is a small lane in here that you would almost think is a driveway, but it's an official county road. That is outside the city limits right there at that point. So it's a small one-lane gravel county road. It basically served a residence that was on, or is still there, but the occupants have sold their property to us. This little green spot is what that county road served. But you can also exit the county road into this farm. They'll lose that access on that county road. So in their opinion, their property's being damaged, and they've given us a figure for that, which is large. And I'll show you those numbers in a moment.
Where does their access then end up coming?
Right now, it's officially up here, there's a little narrow road. It's probably originally a driveway that was accepted by the county some years ago to be a public street. It's paved up to a point, and there are about 3 homes up here that are serviced off of that, plus this vacant property. Fink Drive is the name of that lane.
Yeah, I'm aware of Fink, I'm aware where that is. The appraisers have reached a certain conclusion as far as what the extent of damage to that is. I haven't driven up there. I don't know whether or not, in fact, we really are creating a significant problem of access into any of what sounds like our 4 properties. What is your estimation as our engineer as far as access? Is it still adequate? Or is this something we should be considering for a stronger amount in damages than what the appraisers have suggested?
The property is next door to a single-family subdivision, which would be compatible with that type of development, but the owners are looking at it as more of a high-density residential area, more of an apartment complex-type property development. Fink Drive, a narrow 2-lane, would have to be improved somewhat. We've discussed this with one of the brothers that came in to see us. Typically, what we've told him is when a developer takes a piece of land like this and develops it on a road that may not be sufficient, we expect the developer to carry a lot of that cost. There are cases in town where very large developments have come to us on inadequate streets, and we've gone into a development agreement where we've shared cost. And that's what we've told this gentleman. It's hard to predict whether or not we would share cost on improving Fink Drive, but you approach that when you're faced with it. But Fink Drive would have to be improved to a better 2-lane street than what it is now to support a large-scale development here. It would even have to be approved if it's a single-family development. There's a piece of land here that is owned by Unaka Baptist Church. I think they at one time had planned to go there. This group has been in negotiations with them to try to get an exit across this end of their property where they might buy a 50-foot strip. Now, that's between those 2 parties. We can't help them come to an agreement. But there are some potentials for other access to be opened up into here because it's not completely surrounded by development. How I would not recommend it, we have bought this entire tract on the corner, and it does adjoin this property. And if it came absolutely necessary, I'd make this our last option, and a driveway or a public street could be opened up right across here. The problem with that is it's too close to this intersection, and getting in and out there with backup from a future traffic light at that point will be very difficult, so it's not a real choice place for access.
What's the urgency for completing this acquisition for a project that's not funded?
We've got funding for right-of-way, and the goal is
I got that, but
to keep moving with the completion of right-of-way. All the green that you see are completed. We either have closed or are on the way to closing. The yellow is where we still have positive negotiations taking place. In other words, it doesn't look like we're going to have disagreement on cost. Those 3 red areas are the only ones where we appear to not be coming to terms on value. Urgency is that if we complete right-of-way, and that just makes it possible to have the thing ready to go if funding should become available for construction.
What's the timeline? This may be a better question for Mr. Apps. What's the timeline on condemnation start to finish?
Mr. Apps would like to answer that. I'll allow him. I've been through those myself and kind of know.
Start to finish, it's hard to predict. We take the money that has been ascertained by the commission to be fair market value, and we pay it into court, and the property owner can immediately take that money out. And then the property owner can ask for more money. And then we go, into a trial. The property owner and/or their experts testify, our experts testify, Mr. Cantrell testifies. It's a jury trial, and it just depends. You just never know when you're getting into court exactly how long it would take. It's, and it depends on the other side, too. It depends on the other side, too.
I mean, but if it goes to court, we could be talking multiple years
Yes,
easily, right?
we could.
3, 4 years, 2, 3
We
years.
hope not 3, 4, but
2, 3?
2, 3.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember the specifics of the U-Haul condemnation exactly, but when you go to court on this, is it one or the other, or can the court decide for something in between the two requests?
Yes, the jury comes up with the amount, if it's a jury trial, and they're instructed not to average the two, but to actually come to, a rational basis for the amount that they get or come up with.
I mean, considering the size of the discrepancy,
It's large.
we're likely going to end up in court anyway, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
might as well start. That'd be your
Yes, I mean,
counsel.
we would just continue on.
I have one more question for, the access that they have now on that single-lane gravel county road, is that easy access off of the road? Is it like a driveway somebody gravelled, or?
It was more or less used exclusively for the home that sits on this little green area. This was, I think, a grandson or a nephew of the people who own the bigger part. We have closed with him, and we own that property now. That's why it's green. But that access to the farm was also off of here, but it was more or less tractors and that type of access into the field. It wasn't necessarily for homes at all. The existing road there is named after the family, and it's in the intersection, square in it. That's why the new road is wiping it out. So it wouldn't have been any more of a better access than the one moved over to here.
Yeah, it's right there at the intersection. It would have been terrible for a high-density development to be draining onto
So
the.
that's
what
more what I
prevents
was
them-
getting
Yeah,
at, that
but
it
that's
wouldn't
what I
be a
thought.
good place no matter what.
No, it would not.
What
So-
prevents them from coming from this direction and onto the new road is that the new road's starting to go up over the tracks. And there's quite a bit of grade difference between here and down in the field. And we also have a guardrail going in there, and it just wouldn't be a safe place for traffic coming down off the bridge to the intersection for a driveway or a street to be there either.
Helen, would you trace for me where the new road runs on that, please?
Yes, let me go to the next slide,
Okay.
and it'll give you a better idea. The property that we've been discussing is this field and this group of trees right here. And you can tell by the fence lines roughly where the property is. And the road, this is Mountain View. The little county road is right in there. And that first building, we've bought it, and the home is kind of hidden right in here behind that shading. But this is the road footprint as it comes up and over the railroad track and then curves right back into the Knob Creek Road.
Okay, can you show me where track 16 and 17A is, the one that we
Yes.
have pulled for
Right here
tonight?
is 16 in the curvature of the road,
Okay.
and 17 is right behind it.
Okay, how are we impacting that particular tract with this road? I've been having a hard time visualizing.
That same question, because it doesn't look like it involves the overpass at all.
Okay, this is a close-up of 16. There's a home on it, and a large addition has been added. This picture was taken during construction. This long, narrow strip used to belong to the railroad, and a lady that worked for the railroad bought it before she retired from the railroad. She's passed away, and this family, the Kolanjiskis, the senior Kolanjiski originally bought this strip and this strip here. And just this past January, he sold this strip to his son, who owns the house. And you can see the house is right on the old property line, so that helps him with that. So now we're dealing with the son on this track, and over here, senior has agreed to accept our offer. Now over here, the reason we're recommending condemnation on this one, and it's not on your agenda, but I'll tell you this, is he wants to wait until the road is built and he can see how it actually has shaped up and impacts his property before he makes a decision. They also have had a separate appraisal made for themselves, and it's a little larger than ours. In terms of what the damages might be to him from the road being improved down in this area, the main line is over here, but we improved this road back to a point along here. He's not sure he completely can visualize that, and he would just prefer to wait until it's over. And so to allow us to have access to his property, you would file and get right of possession through the judge and put the money up like Mr. Epps said. He can go get it, he can use it while we're building the road, and then we can settle the issue later. This may get settled out of court later, depending on his opinion of how we've impacted his property.
So it's not the new road that's impacting his property, it's improvements to the old road that's impacting his property?
Yeah, let me go back to that diagram of the, see, right here, as you come off the bridge, what is, I guess, Claude Simmons Road and Knob Creek Road come together here at the tunnel. This is the old one-lane tunnel. From roughly right here in the curve, we'll be improving that road. It gets elevated to match the new grade. As you come off the bridge, you're at a higher elevation than today.
Okay.
So we had to relocate Municipal Hill Subdivision Street right here to match that new grade. And so it required reworking of this road all the way to here. And that impacts that home and that strip of land back here.
So it's the improvements to the existing road that are at issue here,
Right.
not the new road?
The new road is shifting a little bit away from him and impacting this farm over here a little bit more than today.
Okay,
But that is the extent of that.
okay.
And the new road, by the time it gets to his house, might still be 6 or 8 feet above where it is now, or what's the elevation change?
Right in front of his house, it would be 4 to 6 feet higher than it is today, but further away. So coming up and moving away. By the time you get to the lower end of his property, we're back to grade. But we're climbing as we go across here, and since he bought his dad's strip up here, we're probably 20 feet above grade of this end of that narrow, long strip you saw on the other map. So that's 16 and 17A. 19 again was that. You want to talk about 28?
I think that's
our next one.
A7, so go, or if you're done with A6.
All right, 28 is this red area here in the curve. Fuddruckers is right over here. You turn into Lowe's right there. This little strips there with the restaurant in it here for wings, and Kohl's is right over there. And basically their detention basin is in this area. This one, all three of these are different. The first one was a difference in opinion of cost. The second one is want to wait and see what the road looks like. This one is where you have the landowner who will get the majority of the money, and you have a tenant that is leasing this property from the landowner with a long-term lease who has improvements on it, trees and landscaping and other things that they've spent money on, and the offer for that is $15,000. So the tenant would get $15,000. The landowner would get the balance of $375,000 minus the $15,000. The landowner is agreeable, but the tenant feels like they should get more money. Now, that's not a battle for us to solve. That's between the two of them. But waiting on them to solve that could get in the way of going forward with the project. That gets back to your question on timing, but it's going to be better to go ahead and move towards condemnation of this, to give them time to resolve their issue. So I don't think this one is an argument over what the total payment is. It's how much of that gets split up and divided between the landowner and the leaseholder.
That's the strip center right next to Kohl's, right?
Yes, this
There's
is.
2 tenants in
Right.
there now.
And I'll give you a closer view of that. There's the center. There, Kohl's up here, the center here. There's a driveway you can enter in there. And these lines here are existing right-of-way lines. So you can see we're pretty close to the center already right there. We don't need any land there. But let me get to the next picture, next slide. Now this one, the center that you saw in the last picture is about right here. There's that driveway. So we're not needing much right here, but it gets wide out here. We're moving in towards their detention basin back here by the creek. We take a little bit on the corner to improve the radius, nothing through here, and then we get this strip. The trees that are in question are somewhere in here.
Can you go back to the picture of the overhead? So on that, where will the road come, and is it going to take out that whole strip, or where?
You see the wide part of the road here? We hook up right here and begin to curve into this area. We don't curve quite as sharply as this. It's a flatter curve through here. So the road is moving over in this direction.
So the building itself, though, is intact?
The building is not touched. They'll still be able to drive around the corner of the building to this back area.
You're just taking out all that landscaping right there.
This landscaping in here is what the value of the 15,000 is for, and a few other things, and there's some
So the
paving.
landowner owns all that property behind, and that's the $375,000?
There's a property line across here. That appears to be all the way down to here and up through there is owned by Franklin and Marion Sell, two brothers. And they've leased it to a company out of New York who owned this lease on this building and the parking lot around it. So while that takes place for how they divide that up among themselves, we would recommend condemnation so we can have right of possession to begin the project here when appropriate.
Appreciate the explanation, appreciate an understanding of the process we're going to go through as well.
Very good. Any more questions? Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
Have a motion, how about a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4654-18 on third reading. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled "An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from I-1 Light Industrial District to RO1 High Density Residential Professional Office District, a portion of certain property located at 2721 East Oakland Avenue." Ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Very good. This is third reading. We're pretty versed on this. Does anybody need another presentation, or are we ready to vote on it?
Move approval.
Very good.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Well, it's good to make a song go through it again, though. It just helps them.
We'd like you to do it in song this time, okay? Yeah. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of a concept plan for, related to the rezoning you just did. The concept plan is in your packet and ready for your consideration.
Has it changed since second reading?
No, sir.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor
Yes.
Tumita?
Next order of business is a resolution to annex certain property known as the Isaacs annexation. A resolution to annex certain property located within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, adjoining the present corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, said property being known as the Isaacs annexation. To zone said property R2A, low-density residential, as described herein, and to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee accordingly, being a part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Is this still 800 square feet?
Yes, sir.
All right, move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4655-18. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by assigning a R2A low-density residential to certain property within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, known as the Isaacs annexation, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Are you sure that's still 800 square feet? It looks bigger on that slide.
Every place for a tiny home.
$7.99.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of a resolution for the Royston annexation. A resolution to annex certain property located within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, adjoining the present corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, said property being known as the Royston annexation. To zone said property RP2, Planned Residential District, as described herein, and to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee accordingly, being a part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Would anyone like the presentation?
Move approval.
Motion, how about a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
Next item is an ordinance number 4656-18. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by assigning a RP2 planned residential to certain property within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, known as the Royston annexation, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Very good. Would anyone like the presentation?
Move for approval.
Got a motion, how about a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Brocklin? Commissioner Wise?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mayor Tumita?
Yes.
That brings you to the conclusion of tonight's business. I would bring to your attention that Ms. Jennings has included your January financial information in this packet. We will not be reviewing it this evening, but we'll be hitting the highlights at your next meeting, and would remind you that you have instructed us to reschedule your next regularly scheduled meeting from March the 15th to Thursday, March the 22nd.
Very good. Anything anyone would like to say before we adjourn? Commissioner
Hinesville
Fowler?
just tipped off against Dobbins Bennett at Crockett High School for a chance to stay home for Sunday.
There we go.
Go Toppers.
ETSU girls just won their first round over in Asheville this afternoon.
Go Bucks this weekend.
Go Bucks.
Yep.
Mayor, I do want to take a couple of minutes here. We've talked a little bit about people who are commissioners who sit on various boards to kind of keep the commission appraised of things that are transpiring. So there are 4 things I want to touch on briefly. What has transpired with a newly constituted Washington County Economic Development Council, some conversation that's been being held at the Facilities Committee for the schools, TIF committee meeting today, and then some things that are going on with the JCDA in downtown. With regard to the Washington County EDC, I've given each of you a copy of the transfer of monies that's going to take place between the currently existing or the previously existing Washington County EDC and the new regional entities. So you've got that, and then also some information on the 3-Star program, which is the economic development program that the state has come up with that's trying to broaden participation on economic development councils, because that will have some impact on how the new Washington County EDC is constituted. The new bylaws were approved for the new Washington County EDC on Monday the 26th. Membership initially is only 4 individuals, so I think it's important for you to know that. Washington County Mayor, the Jonesboro Mayor, the City of Johnson City City Manager, and 1 member of the public who prior to his death was Warren Broyles, in my understanding, or rather Warren Broyles, in my understanding, is Ryan is now going to be the member of the public on this newly constituted board. The intent is that at least 6 additional members be appointed to the group from the list of 12 categories recommended in the 3-star program. So you have the information on that, so you have some idea how this Economic Development Council will ultimately end up being constituted. Transfer of funds to the regional entity is initially $222,000. About $230,000 of restricted funds are going to be applied to the new industrial park in the county fairly promptly. That leaves about $10,000 in restricted fund balance, about $68,000 in unrestricted fund balance, and a $15,000 yearly operating expense being provided from monies that we in the county provide to the regional group, being left to be utilized by the new Washington County EDC. Had a lot of questions at the meeting about whether or not staff honestly believes that that's an adequate amount for this entity to function effectively. I have some concerns that I think the commission needs to consider as we move forward and as we watch how things unfold, that there are going to be occasions where what is good for Washington County and what is very important be accomplished for Washington County in the field of economic development may at times diverge somewhat from what's important to the regional entity. And with all the staff being working towards the regional approach, I wonder if at some point we're going to have to look again at a stronger contribution to the Washington County EDC as a separate entity. So I certainly will be watching that. I would encourage everybody on the commission to be watching that as well. It is not true that always what's great for the region takes into account what needs to occur for the county itself. That said, I support the regional concept. I think that it's a good concept, and I support us moving forward with that. I just think we need to be aware that we have our own needs as a county that sometimes don't mesh. The one thing that was most important that I wanted to see occur with the reconstitution of the Washington County EDC was that we retain the 1101 designation to continue to serve as the economic development entity for Washington County. That did occur, so at least a base line is there for moving forward with this group. I just have a little concern whether or not adequate monies are being devoted to it, and whether without a staff that's committed to that particular council, whether or not it's going to prove to be pretty ineffective as the previously existing Washington County Economic Development Board, which predated the Washington County EDC, it was not a very effective group. It did have some staff. Without staff, I wonder if we're going to be even less effective in that regard. So at any rate, you've got a little background information there. This is what the council voted to do at the meeting on Monday. With the Facilities Committee, we've got a lot of issues coming up for the schools.
Commissioner, before we
Yes.
leave that, I do
Yes.
have one follow-up question. Our funding of JCDA is not within this budget that you've given us here, is it?
It is, that money goes to the newly approved entity, I think.
It does.
I think that, yeah.
The appropriation to JCDA, PBA, not the debt service funds, but the operating accounts, goes to net rep. Net rep turns around and charges those entities a management fee for the staffing and all the clerical and legal fees and stuff. So what goes to the Washington County Economic Development Council, WCEDC, will be only for that one board. The rest of it actually will be an appropriation to net rep, and they will take care of the JCDA and the PBA out of that funding amount.
Be
And
good to
that's
see that budget
$200 and
some point in
some $1,000. I don't remember what the amount is right off the top of my head. But that $200 and some $1,000 is all of the funding requirement to fund those three entities.
Yeah, we'll see those numbers at budget time and broken down at budget time. With the Facilities Committee, we met this last week as well. Tom Weems has been selected as the architect to assist in developing plans to make sure that as we go towards 2 middle schools, that there's equitable facilities for each of the two, both as far as athletics and as far as the components, the educational components within the buildings. He's also going to look at things in a broader sense to help formulate plans for what's needed in the way of improvements at a variety of our schools, what's possible as far as building out at a variety of our schools. The complete package of what he's to do has not yet been established. That's being worked on currently, and his contract will be negotiated based upon what the schools decide is important be accomplished by him. There's been some indication that additional roofs will be required, including portions of Indian Trail, and Mr. Peterson and I had some conversation regarding how the PEP funds that have been applied to other roofs, whether or not there's still monies available or whether more monies are going to be available in the term that it needs to be available to do these roofing projects, and he's indicated that in fact that's the case. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that just a little bit.
The roof projects that we bid and just concluded, in fact, I think you approved final payments on them this evening, came in less than what we had anticipated on the front end. There should be existing money in what's available through the PEP to fund the balance of the roof projects. We should be in good shape with that.
And the schools also have been charged with looking at how they hope to accomplish any differential between the monies that we have coming to us from the county and what the cost of construction of the gymnasium and the cafeteria up at Libertyville will potentially be. So hopefully they'll look at that pretty critically, and we'll have some answers from them about how they hope to approach that. Schools had a session scheduled today to look at security concerns within the schools, so we should start seeing some information from them regarding what they feel the needs are to attend to existing security needs and potentially to deal with some of the heightened concerns after this last mass shooting at the school in Florida. TIF committee met this morning, and you have in front of you as well, I think I provided to you, indication about what the JCA would like to see occur up at Cherry Commons up there adjacent to Southern Craft and Phil Cox's developments. We know, maybe I didn't, I think I didn't because I think my printer's ink was not doing too well, but I'll pass that around. The intent is to put pavers and decorative design along the road up there adjacent to those buildings and make that much more attractive and a much safer area for people who are utilizing the businesses up there. There was appreciation expressed for what the commission and the city has done as far as getting the ballards up there and changing the configuration in the parking lot. They feel it's made a huge difference as far as safety up there. Project costs to do the pavers are estimated at $145,000. City is, my understanding, has indicated a commitment of $60,000 to do that. Portion of that, the owners up there are going to be putting $35,000 into it. So the TIP funding that's going to be requested to be approved by the county is in the amount of $50,000 to finish that project up. So that was the main area of conversation at the meeting this morning.
When will that go to the county?
I think they're going to try to get it to them, at least to committee this next month, is my understanding. Okay. So I think that it will come under consideration by the current commission. I think it's not anticipated that it would be put off until the newly constituted commission is seated. One of the big issues that the TIF committee has had to look at recently is In our agreement between the county and the city and the JCDA, there's an $11 million cap on the amount of projects that we can fund with TIF funding. We currently stand at about $8 million in obligations, so there's only a $3 million window there of opportunity to continue to invest in TIF projects. We have been advised that the second phase of the General Mills project, a lot of things are starting to come together. There is considered to be the possibility that as much as $35 million worth of investment will take place up there in the second phase. That's great for us. That's great for the developer. But that could, as I looked at the figures a little earlier this afternoon, that could be $4 million right there over a 14-year term that we would be paying out. So, that's $4 million to the city and to the county, which is great in additional taxes over that period of time. But we have to figure out a way to be able to accommodate that, and that won't, $4 million won't fit within that cap. So what we looked at today was the possibility of restructuring Tipton Street and restructuring University Edge to accomplish two things. One would be a lesser payout over time for each of those two, but the other would be to take about $2.5 million of debt away from currently existing debt to free up some space between what we're committed to and what we can commit to. So if we had that additional $2.5 million, we should be in pretty good shape to continue to move forward with continued development in the district. Again, we could bump up against that cap if things get vigorous, but these are things that have to be addressed. I think that there was a good discussion about it today, and I think the plan moving forward to try to accomplish that looks promising. So good things are happening down there, but there are some issues that we have to look at. Other couple of things that I'll mention. There's been discussion over the last 3 or 4 years about formulation of a downtown business improvement district, which basically is a situation where the downtown owners levy a tax on themselves that then can be applied to improvements within the district to make the district more functional, more aesthetic, more safe. And it looks, according to the conversation this morning, it looks like there's pretty good buy-in to that. Good possibility that will actually come to fruition. Could amount to $250,000 to $300,000 a year that the merchants down there would then be able to put back into developing their district and improving their properties. So I did not know whether or not that really had a great chance of moving forward in this community, quite honestly, but it looks like a lot of support for it. It looks like a good possibility of that occurring. Conversations continue to occur surrounding the development of the boardwalk out in front of the properties on Buffalo Street. Railroad still is not being entirely cooperative with allowing that to occur. There are some issues potentially as far as how that gets structured that we may have to look at how our code reads as well. Apparently, there's some issues that might make that difficult to accomplish along the lines that the railroad says that it would have to be accomplished for them to support it and to make those properties the right of way available. Final thing, which many of you may be aware of, I wasn't until today, but apparently the John Sevier has a strong chance of changing hands. And when it does, it's felt that there is an opportunity to begin to have some conversation about land swap that would involve very important vouchers for it to occur. But there's a glimmer of hope there. So I thought everybody would be interested in hearing that. That's all I've got for you this evening.
That's it?
Great.
I probably could find some more.
Thank you. Just a quick response to, hearing about West Walnut and the mill and all that kind of stuff. I think as we start thinking about all this rapid growth and development over there is our own capital infrastructure along West Walnut. Because once that starts getting going, we'll have to address many of those issues there. A lot of the work that Joe has done and the quarter study, how we're going to fund that and over what period of time and how that melds in with everything that's going on there.
Our recommendation is that you do that long before those properties redevelop, because if we get behind the redevelopment, we'll never get caught up, and that is a piece of the budget that you will have coming to you.
Good.
And
I'm glad we're going to see some indication of numbers on that, because we do need, as a commission, we talked about it at the agenda meeting, we need to sit down as a commission, we need to look at the variety of projects that we've identified over the last 3 or 4 years, understand what they cost, understand what's rolling off in the way of debt, and then begin to prioritize how we utilize that roll-off of debt or application of other dollars.
And you mentioned a particular project on Walnut Street. If we're going to look at, for lack of a better word, restructuring our TIF program, I think it would behoove us to take into consideration that there's going to be more than one project on West Walnut
yes.
Street that's going to want to
Right.
scale, and probably a number of equally good projects over there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I indicated that as clearly as I might have, but that was part of what I intended with that conversation, was the understanding that we're doing something to help restructure, to create a little bit more room under the cap. But, that's going to bump us up against it again very quickly if anything else requires money.
Yes.
TIF assistance.
It's probably worth saying about the downtown business district that's in conversation, that doesn't really become new revenues. It's a new revenue stream, but the money, as I understand it, is this the last year that the sizable lease payments on the Northeast State facility occur? And so for anybody watching, trying to figure out, well, another 200,000 or 300,000, what we're having to do is replace dollars that people have become accustomed to being invested into that area, that if we don't do something, fast forward a year or two from now, the funding for that no longer flows. And so people will miss the things that have gone on for all these years now.
Yeah, happily, I think that what's generated through the Business Improvement District is a larger dollar amount than what's being lost, so. At least what of that is being invested directly in that fashion.
Ralph, have the merchants prioritized what they feel like their biggest needs are if they go this direction? Is it safety and
I have
public
not,
support?
I have not had that depth of discussion regarding.
And they're still having those conversations. I believe there are still at least 2 meetings to occur.
There was a
so we
meeting actually
probably,
this morning.
and I think there's one middle of March yet, so it would probably behoove us to sit back a couple weeks, because I know I've heard from people down there that hadn't been to the meeting, and I've heard from some who have, and I think it helps if you haven't been to the meeting, go to the meeting.
Be a good time to start.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for that. Anything else? We'll call this meeting adjourned. Have a good day. All right.